everyone. So we are back again. So today's topic is for GST set of entries, how to do GST set of entries in RealBooks. So I'll be going one by one with all the steps of the GST set off, and after each transactions or after each step, I'll just pause the video or pause the next step, and I'll wait for your feedbacks or questions to come up in the chat box. So request you all to be active over there, and accordingly you can post all your questions and queries regarding to the GST set off in your chat box. Okay, so let's begin with. So today's topic is what is GST set off? So first of all, let's understand like output tax credit or output tax set off is a system in which businesses can set off the GST collected, that is output tax, against the GST paid, that is the input tax. So at the end of the day, whatever net payable is there for the GST part, for that purpose, we are supposed to update the GST set off transactions in RealBooks. So how to do that? Let's begin. I'll quickly share my screen. So after logging in RealBooks, first of all, the moment when we go to settings configuration and in compliance part, when we enable the param of GST, which is goods and service tax, after that automatically few GST ledgers get created in our RealBooks. Those are the pre-created ledgers. So while doing the adjustments of these GST set of entries, these adjustments are being done via electronic ledgers, which are already created in the system by the RealBooks. So let's see. We'll type as electronic just to check if the ledgers are available or not. Yes, the ledgers are available. As you can see, IGST electronic ledgers, SGST electronic ledgers, CGST, IGST, and so on. So let's move ahead. So the first entry we'll be doing is in accounts, vouchers, and GST set off. So this GST set off voucher type is already pre-created in the book. So you don't have to create this voucher type in the system at the time of GST set off transactions. So let's begin with, we'll be debiting CGST electronic credit ledger. Say suppose this, and we'll be giving the value as 15,000. And now we'll be putting it as electronic. SGST, and again, we'll be putting this amount. And then comes IGST, electronic credit ledger, which is again debit, with an amount of, say, 14,000. And what all ledgers will get credited over here? We are going to credit CGST input 2.5%, which is, say, suppose 2,800. And then comes your SGST input 2.5%, 28800. Then comes CGST input 6%, say suppose 6,000. Then comes SGST input 6%, 6,000. And then comes, say, suppose IGST input 12%, which is 20,000. And IGST input as 18%. So these are the random figures that I am updating over here at the time of GST. At the time of GST entries, you'll always have to refer your balances or whatever entries which you have already updated in RealBooks in order to update the correct values in the GST set off. So what actually we are supposed to do, first of all, for the first step, we are supposed to adjust all the different rates input against the electronic credit ledger. so that we can arrive at one specific ledger of what is CGST ledger, which is against the credit ledger amount, what is the SGST credit ledger amount, and what is the IGST credit ledger amount at the time of GST set off. So I will give the date of 31st of January 2024, because usually these set of entries are done at the end of the month. So I've updated it as 31st January 2024, and I'll quickly click on submit. So my entry got saved. Now the similar process, I'll have to update it for the output ledgers, like different rates were getting updated for the input ledgers in my first entry. In the second entry, I'll be updating all the different rates of output ledger against the liability ledger. Now I'll update CGST output as 2.5%. And then comes your SGST output 2.5% as 8,900. And then comes CGST output of 9%. 6,000, say suppose. SGST output 9%, again debit, and 6,000. Then I'll have one IGST ledger over here, which is 5%, say. Let's make it 9,000. And then in my credit, I will be updating my all electronic liability ledgers. CGST electronic ledger, say suppose 15,000. And then SGST electronic liability ledger is 15,000. And then comes IGST electronic ledger liability ledger of 8,800. Again, the date would be 31st January 2024. And now we'll click on submit. So the best way to know the balances is to refer your ledger group report for GST input and GST output for a month, so that you can update the correct figures at the time of GST set off at the end of the month. So two types of GST ledgers I have updated. I'll just quickly show it to you. We'll go with date of creation, and daybook is always best way to refer for all the transactions which has been updated. So first of all, what did we do? We had updated or adjusted all my different rates input ledgers against our electronic credit ledger, which we usually done at the end of the month. And the other entry which we have updated is all the different rates GST output ledgers has been adjusted against the electronic liability ledger. So this way we can arrive with one figure of against the CGST, SGST, IGST output amounts, as well as similarly for the first adjustments, we can arrive with a single figure against all the different rates of input ledgers of CGST, SGST respectively. And then we'll be updating our next transactions, which is again the GST set of ledger. Now, what did we do? We had updated we have consolidated all the different rates of input ledgers against one ledgers of electronic credit ledger of CGST, SGST, IGST, and the same way we did it for the output ledgers. Now we are going to set off, or we are going to arrive to a net figure which is payable to the government at the time of GST set off, which would be, again, the date would be 31st of January 2024. And then we will be going and updating like First, we will be taking CGST electronic liability ledger as debit. And here the amount that we arrived was 15,000. Let's put it as 15,000. Then we'll go with the other ledger debit, which is again the SGST electronic liability ledger. Again, I'm doing a copy paste activity because that's the safest way to update all the transactions. And then we'll do it the same way for our IGST ledger. So say suppose we have arrived with a figure of 9,000 over here. Now, when it comes to the electronic input of credit ledgers, we will be updating at CGST, electronic, credit ledger. Say suppose the value that we derived was 10,000. And then we'll be updating it as SGST, electronic ledger, which is, say, suppose again 10,000. And then we'll be updating it as IGST, electronic credit ledger as, sorry, this figure would be a little lower. And whatever differential balance is, that needs to be updated against the cash ledgers, electronic cash ledgers. Like now it comes into the scenario. Okay, just a second. We can do two way these kind of entries. Either we can put a compound, a consolidated transactions that we can adjust all the cash ledgers over here as well itself. Or what we can do, we can update the amount, we set off entries against the liability ledger and credit ledger first. And then the balance figure, the difference figure can always be updated against the cash ledgers. So let's do it for the set of entries initially, which is at the end of the month. And we'll click on submit. So the entry that we are supposed to do at the time of 7th of the month, or the payment against the set of entry or the journal entry, adjustment entry against the electronic cash ledger, will be done on the 5th or the 7th of the other month. So we are debiting CGST electronic ledger. Then we'll be debit SGST electronic ledger, cash liability ledger, sorry. With an amount of 3,000, then we'll debit IGST electronic liability ledger with an amount of 5,000. And then we'll be, this is the last entry. So now we'll be crediting CGST electronic cash ledger with an amount of 3,000, and then comes SGST electronic cash ledger 3,000, and then comes IGST electronic cash ledger with an amount of 5,000, and now we can click on submit. So what all entries did we do today? So first entry that we updated in the system was that we were updating the set of entries or consolidating all the different input rates under one ledger, which was the electronic credit ledger, by debiting all the electronic credit ledgers and the respective different rates of input ledger. That was the first entry which we updated today. And these set of entries are usually updated at the end of the month, because at that time you're clear, okay, what all your net figures of CGST, SGST, and IGST input ledger or output ledger is. And the second entry that we updated in the books of accounts was related to output ledgers, that consolidating different rates of CGST, SGST output ledgers against the CGST, SGST electronic liability ledger. And the third entry that we updated was adjusting the CGST electronic liability ledger against the CGST electronic credit ledger, and the same for SGST and IGST, just in order to arrive a differential amount against which we can adjust against a journal transaction, which is usually done on 5th or 7th of the next month. And those entries are such that you'll be updating the balancing ledgers of CGST electronic liability ledger, SGST electronic liability ledger, IGST electronic liability ledger against CGST, SGST, IGST, and electronic cash ledgers. So this way you update the GST set of transactions in RealBooks. And to view these entries repercussion, you will have to go to reports, compliance, GST, and you'll have to, I'll just quickly check the business phase that we selected. So it was for Havra business phase. We'll go to reports, compliance, GST, and GSTR 3. So I'll select this particular business place, the respective business place, and then we'll click on search. By the time, if anyone has any queries, they can quickly pose their queries in the chat box. So we are having a number of chats coming in the chat box, and which are being answered from our team one by one. Other than that, if there is any more query, you can please come up in the chat box and leave your precious comments so that we can answer you one by one. So by the time, I'll just show the GSTR 3B report and we will be going to the expand option. Over here, the expand option says the GST auto set off health. So whatever transactions you have updated and the way you have updated in the books of accounts for the month of January, you can have a drill down and have a proper bifurcation of IGST, CGST, and SCST. So the breakup reflects over here in our GSTR 3B report. You are also having the export option of the GSTR 3B as well, so that in case if there is a number of data is huge in your company, a number of transactions are huge in your company, you can quickly opt for the Excel export option of GSTR 3B. Okay, so we also had one of the questions in the chat box, like if there are a huge number of segments in RealBooks for, like my Adi books has 80 segments. So how to set off the entries in RealBooks? So you always have the option of Excel import. So we can go to transactions, import, export, and import option. So there are a number of options over here for you for updating the set of entries for more than one segments. You can opt for accounts voucher, and you can download the template from this icon. And then you can fill in all the required details which is asked in these sheets, for which we already had a session earlier, and we'll just pin the link of that particular session in our chat box shortly. So you can always opt these options for uploading your GST set of entries for multiple segments.
Hello, my name is Ravi. I have a question. My question is, what did you do for unutilized ITC which is not reflecting in the GST 2B?
Hello everyone, Ravi ji, to answer your query specifically, what to do with the unutilized ITC. So basically, if you go through our GSTR 2B report, our GSTR 2B has this option where you get to see what is the amount that actually you have not taken, like you have not recorded in your books. So basically, the GSTR 2B reports gives you the complete detail of the total inputs available, from which you can easily identify which one you are taking in a month and which one you are not taking in a month because the same has not been filed. So the entire tagging can be done in GSTR2B, based on which you can take the inputs. I hope this answers your question, and in case you have a query, we can still connect with you over a call, or you can drop in a mail to our support team. Oh. Yeah, Kartik ji. So basically, I would suggest, though we are showing you the GSTR2B report where you can actually understand how the taggings are working, but for this, possibly we need a separate session where we can guide you on how to actually use the GSTR2B report. If you are maintaining all of your data on RealBooks, if you are doing the GST reconciliation on the software, then you can easily get the entire detail on the software. You can get the input details correctly, based on which you know what is the input that you are eligible to actually claim in a month. So there are certain listings as well over here where you can get the unclaimed input report, the actual inputs that you can might be claim in a month. So if you see, there is this input taken column. So at the top, there is this option to enable matching months. So once you click on that, you can tag the month against which, in which month you are taking the input. So if you select 2 rows and you click on enable matching for month, you get this option to select the month in which you are taking the input. The moment you mark this, the system will consider this as the input to be taken or considered in the specific month. Now, once you have done all the tagging against the input taken column, you can simply filter the data, and you get the total of the inputs that you can claim in a month. And in addition to this, in this very report, you get the pending data as well. I mean, the entries against which you have not booked the entry in your books, but the vendor has filed the return. So those inputs can also be considered from this very report. You know how much exactly you can claim in a month. So for that, we already had a GSTR2B session, of which the link we will be tagging in this chat. So for you to understand more in more detail how to use the GSTR2B report, or what all functionalities do we have in that very report. What I'll do is I'll allow you all to unmute yourself, but please try to raise your hand, and then one by one you can come up with your questions so that we can answer it. Yeah, sure, Kartik ji, unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, which is available in 2B,
Yeah.
whereas it is not available in input. So those entries needs to be carry forward entry.
Right.
Okay. In 3B, while filing, we need to report those values. So in RealBooks, how to accommodate those entries?
You have
Yes.
not booked, but the person has filed the return for it.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
happens with RealBooks, you have this option to fetch the JSON file directly from the portal against which we are doing the matching for you. Okay. So once you fetch this file from the portal, whatever entries are available in the books against that the system will do the matching itself. The status will come as not in RealBooks. Where you see this not in 2B, this means that you have booked the entry, but the same is not filed by the vendor. And the other way around is not in RealBooks. That means the person has filed the return, but you have not taken the entry in your books. You have not considered it. So based on that, you get to claim, you get to filter the data. You can easily identify what is the value that you have not that you are not claiming in this month, or you have not considered in your books this month.
No, this facility is
Yeah.
available to file this reversal statement, everything.
No, so the filing cannot be done for GSTR 3B from here, but yeah, definitely you can get the data from here. For now, we are only giving you GSTR 1 and GSTR 2 direct from the system. So you can file your GSTR 1 directly from the system. You can do the reconciliations of GSTR 2B directly inside the system. You don't need to do anything manually. But for GSTR 3B, we are giving you all the data in the books, or like in the return format that you have seen, from where you can take the data and do your filings. However, we are already working on the GSTR 3B direct filing from the system as well. But then that is something which we are not really sure of how much time it is going to take for it to come live.
Okay. So before the payment entry, unprinted
Yeah.
payment entry, before that we need to transfer from cash ledger to credit ledger, or
No,
From
so I'll
liability.
tell you. So I'll just give you a synopsis of the steps that are involved, or why are we doing it. So first of all, in GST portal, you are definitely getting these three different ledgers, that is electronic liability,
Yes.
electronic credit, and electronic cash.
Yeah.
So just to help the users reconcile their books balances with the portal balances, we encourage everyone to do this GST set of entries. Number one. Number two, how are we doing it? We are transferring all the inputs to the credit ledger, all the outputs to the electronic liability ledger. And then the after setting up or after adjusting the balances of electronic credit ledger against the electronic liability, if suppose you are having 50,000 liability still pending to be paid to the government, then in that case, this electronic liability ledger spending 50,000, you need to transfer to electronic cash ledger. So once you transfer this to electronic cash ledger, that means with your portal's electronic cash ledger balance also, you can easily match this data. Because in the portal also, when you are depositing or when you're making the payment, the same amount will be reflecting in electronic cash ledger, right?
Yes.
So the idea is to help our users have the reconciliation data ready. We are encouraging all of you to use the GST set of entries from the system. And once you have done the transfer of electronic liability to electronic cash ledger, post that you can, when you're making the payment. So I assume you told it is being paid on 20th, right?
Yes.
So when you're making the payment on 20th of the month, what you can do is you are simply transferring or adjusting the electronic cash ledger against the actual payment ledger. That is your bank ledger might be.
Yeah.
So what you do is electronic cash ledger debit 50,000 to bank 50,000.
Yes.
So that is the entire process. The dates are obviously something which is which might differ in your case from what has been told over here, but it is just a way we are trying to give you the idea of how to do it.
Madam has postponed through a journal entry.
Yeah, it is GST set off. So basically, there's this voucher type named GST set off with the nature of journal only. All of these entries are done in GST set off ledger or GST set off voucher. Be it your electronic input transfer or your electronic cash ledger adjustment, everything is done in GST set off. And when you're making the actual payment, that is to be done by a payment voucher type. Any other query, Karthik ji?
Nothing, ma'am. Thank you.
So, do you mind telling from which company you are?
From Trident.
Trident. Okay. Yeah. Welcome, sir. Amit ji, you can unmute yourself if you have any queries. So, Ashok ji, for reverse charge, I am assuming you are talking about the reverse charge mechanism, the entire thing. Yeah, definitely we have this in the system. You can configure the RCM ledgers and you can do the tax calculation within the system. We are basically doing 2 sessions every month. So we will try to take these queries up in the next session. Whatever queries you have, you can drop it to support@realbooks.in and we will try to answer all of it in the next session that we have. Meanwhile, you can explore our YouTube channel where we have added a lot of videos of ours, be it the training videos, be it how to use RealBooks. There are a lot of videos that are available over there. So I'm sharing the link to the YouTube channel and you can go subscribe or you can go and check the videos that are available over there. So this is the YouTube link. You can go and explore it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the session. Thank you, Varsha, for helping us with the session.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. And the recording would be uploaded in our YouTube channel, official YouTube channel. Please feel free to revisit that video. And in case if there is any more queries relating to that, please do come back to us at support@realbooks.in. Thank you so much all.